Right, so let me just kick it off with a quick introduction bit because most of you see me, you hear my voice, you're probably tired of it at this point. We are here for Gareth, right? We're here to learn from Gareth and hear from Gareth. Please do ask as many questions as possible. If you are wondering, Gareth will do his full introduction. He will have all the details. But our special guest for today is Gareth Boas. So Gareth has, should I say, over 26 years of experience, or is it 26 years of experience? So
it's more than you should be telling people, but yes.
Yeah,
I've been with Silicon since 96 or 97 there, Brian. So Albert, so yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, so most of us probably weren't even born by that time. So Gareth has been working with technology even before you knew how oxygen tasted, which is quite interesting. Right. So currently he works as the CEO of Silicon Overdrive and partner with AWS. So a quick introduction to Silicon Overdrive. It's one of the biggest companies, cloud companies in Southern Africa. And it really just comes in to manage your infrastructure, manage your risk, help you move your infrastructure. Their expertise in cloud solutions, and I quote directly from their website, they are experts in cloud solutions, right? So we welcome you, Mr. Gareth Boas. Thank you for being with us. And this is the second time around that Gareth is here with us. So really do appreciate your time each and every time, right? So we are all here to learn. Don't be shy. 26 years of experience. Probably some of those years are undocumented. It might be 40, it might be 50. You never really know, right? So do ask those questions. Be free. We also open up the floor at some point so that you can also interact and ask questions freely. But welcome everyone. Welcome Gareth. And at this juncture in time, I would want to pass over the mic to Gareth so that we just have a speech from him and hear what he has for us today. In case you are wondering, today's topic is how to build cost-effective cloud-native applications on AWS. And it seems that cost is a huge part of Silicon Overdrive's main goal, right? So please, you know, if you're an expert in cost management, you're already gold in the industry. Yeah. So welcome, Gareth. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Albert. And thanks for everyone who's joined. Sure, there's a lot of people still joining. So thanks for everybody making the time. Yes, as Albert said, I'm CEO of Silicon Overdrive. I'm also a software developer by background, also an AWS solution architect. So I wear a few hats, and yeah, as you've heard, I've been developing for quite some time and seen, tech stacks and technology evolve phenomenally over the last few years. It's really been an amazing thing to watch what's happened on cloud, and particularly the hyperscalers, and just the ability to develop things that 10, 20 years ago you would have taken years to have a team building and stuff. So I think a lot of the frameworks and a lot of the tooling and stuff has come such a long way. And yeah, you really get a strong, robust set of libraries and stuff. If anything, your bigger challenge now as a developer is to actually make sure that you know what you're trying to build and how you're planning to build it, rather than just trying to actually find all the right tools and stuff. So let me share screen. You can see my screen there?
Yes, it's visible.
Yes. Awesome. Cool. Okay, so today I'm going to just chat to you a bit about how to develop cost-efficient cloud-native applications on AWS to impress a client. So when I ran through it and started putting together some thoughts and stuff, I decided to keep it more at the higher level, like a level 200. And I also realized that we need to maybe define a lot around the concepts in terms of what we're wanting to do. In other words, what is cost efficient? What is impressing a client, and then how do you go about systematically seeing how you want to to do that. And then we'll finish off with one or two practical examples from my side, my personal experience, and from my team side and stuff. So there's the agenda. I'd just like to kind of go through and, see or help clarify from my side what we normally do in terms of clarifying client requirements and expectations, how you would go about doing research, how you would then impress a client, and then the practical examples, and then the Q&A and the questions and answers and stuff. I have been sent some questions and answers, but I've only been sent about 4, so we can open it up to the floor afterwards and then see what's there. And as you might see, there are on the call some of the other developers and people from my team, so they're also available to field any questions if you have anything which they might be better suited to answer. Otherwise, let me share a bit more from my side, or Silicon Overdrive side, in terms of when we engage with a new client and you want to things, because let's be honest here, you can't impress a client if you don't know what they're wanting. So first and foremost, you need to really clarify what is the actual requirements or expectations. What is the challenge the application is there to solve? Are you here to create another Facebook or another, Netflix application? Maybe you're trying to do something in country. Maybe there's certain challenges where it needs to run offline. Maybe if we look at M-Pesa, what was the challenge that M-Pesa solved all those years ago, and why is it exceptional? What is the real challenge that the client is coming to you for? Are you looking then to create a POC or an MVP? And then with a POC, are you just kind of trying to showcase that, yes, you can do this or you can do that? In which case, is it more about a cost factor? Is it more about, hey, is this actually possible? Can we take a picture and do facial recognition real time? Can we build that into hardware? Can we do certain things? What is the use case, or what are you trying to do? What is the client prepared to throw more money into? And then how do you manage that? What is the time frame? What is their budget for development? What is the budget for the AWS environment? So a lot of those questions will help you determine, maybe for the POC, you say, in my scenario, like maybe we'll use AWS's recognition. Quick and simple, you pay for what you use. But maybe for the full product, you say, well, maybe at scale, maybe building my own model or running it on an EC2 or doing something else will be a more cost efficient once it gets to 1 million or 10 million use calls a month. But maybe for the POC, all you're really trying to do is see, is the client interested in what I'm putting forward, and what is their turnaround time? It's pointless you kind of coming up with an idea that's going to take you 4 months if the client's wanting to go to market in 4 weeks. So really and truly, you can't impress a client if you don't really fully understand what their expectations are and get them to really define it and stuff. So typically in your SDLC or your software development lifecycle, you would put that down in your scope document or your project brief, and you kind of get the client to sign off on that. You kind of want to try and break that down into milestones. And it's the sort of things that you would normally do in most of your sort of projects that you've done, even if they're internal or classwork stuff, is, you would want to kind of just understand, if I've got to finish this project by end of June for the next semester, what is required? How do I break it down? It's your study breakdown sheet or your project sheet. And you kind of really want to create that. In industry, you might use all these fancy terms like project roadmaps or breaking it down into sprints or this and that. But the basic concept is, you really need to understand, what are you trying to build? Why are you building it? And what is the wow factor? What are you building that's different to what somebody else has already built, or what else is already out there? And how do you know what's out there? So you need to generally do research. So a lot of the time, if you're kind of engaging with a client, maybe it's in a vertical or a area that you won't be overly familiar with, you need to spend a bit of time. You need to go and see, what have other people built? How did they build it? Can we find some case studies? Can we maybe read up on it? Again, you can probably read up and find, how was Netflix built, or how many times did they rebuild? Netflix, Airbnb, a lot of these companies that have got really nice, slick products didn't get there through their first iteration. They would have gone to market, found what didn't work, found where things were too slow. Maybe they built features that nobody used. Maybe what people actually wanted was something quite different. So you want to look at those case studies. You want it to really, tickle your gray matter and make you think about it. Look at their reference architectures. What AWS services did they use? How did they automate certain process or link things together? How can you try and make it maybe more event-based as opposed to procedure-based or things like that, or having things purely run off cron jobs or timed instances or things like that. That's where a lot of the slickness of a lot of the more modern applications comes from, is that whole sort of ability to do a bit of a mix of client-side compute versus server-side compute, give users a quicker, slicker interaction. But again, what are you trying to do? How quickly are you trying to do it? And the easiest is see what other people have done, and then chat with your team or your colleagues and get a sense of what is within our skill sets. Again, it's pointless trying to take on technology that nobody has any skills in, because the learning curve is going to be huge. If you feel that the client's saying that time frame is not critical, maybe you've got the time and you can allocate a bit of time for R&D. Again, ring fence that into kind of deliverable POCs or things where you say, hey, Bob, you do this, John, you do this, and let's make sure that by 2 weeks or whatever we can do this feature with this function that calls this, and at least we get something coming back, or however you want to break it down that makes logical sense for it. But as I say, a lot of the time, AWS services can be integrated a lot quicker, particularly for POCs and MVPs. And you really want to just kind of see how that development framework can do. Similarly, you want to also be aware of how you are building those things. As we've spoken, or I've spoken to you previously, and we looked at security, you generally want to always be considering security first, unless it's a throwaway POC, in which case you don't really need to maintain it afterwards. But you want to be looking at security first and how you can make sure that you're right sizing or not overpaying for those sort of things. So a lot of the time you can use the AWS cost calculator. For those that aren't aware of it, there's the link to it. And it's a very nice tool that all of our solution architects use, which we present to clients. And we basically say, if this is a solution you want, this is kind of how it will, what the cost will likely be. And we often will work with the client to maybe present 2 calculators. Maybe you've got one for a POC, and then maybe what that will look like if they go into a full production workload and they want more reliability and resilience in the architecture, in which case then you'd be looking for certain things like maybe enabling multi-AZ on your database, but that increases your cost. Maybe you'd want 2 NAT gateways or things so that you can span availability zones, but then your EC2s or your Fargates and stuff need to be available to still work even if you have an outage in an availability zone. So you also need to combine the cost versus reliability versus actually getting a product to market. And that's where you kind of are wanting to understand, again, what is the client looking for, what is the time frame, and what is going to impress them. Because it's great you building something that runs really cheap, but then there's an outage and the site goes down when they have a demo or something silly like that. So you want to really just kind of be weighing up those sort of things in terms of how it can be put together to really kind of make sure that you're considering all of those things. Even if some of it can be done later, you need to just consider it from the beginning and then make time on it to go through and implement it. The other thing that we see a lot of is, can a solution be modernized? So a lot of time people have already done a traditional lift and shift or put on a monolith solution on an EC2. And generally a modernized solution comes with a lot of benefits. It's typically faster to develop. Inevitably, it's easier to support. And the costs then are less to run. There's a sort of like a total cost of ownership comparison that is normally shows kind of like, if you've got your on-premise and you just do a lift and shift, you typically will be paying similar, possibly even slightly more, depending on the size of the resources and what the cost of the on-prem was. But your journey in cloud typically would go towards instance right sizing, get a better sense, look at the metrics, maybe improving elasticity, maybe implementing load balancing, auto scaling groups, or maybe even moving to proper serverless, maybe offloading a lot of your features that require a larger EC2. You rather move those functions and features off into Lambda or some other method to handle your worker tier or your cron jobs and stuff like that. And maybe then, if you can from the beginning, rather develop it using serverless. Serverless being things like maybe Fargate to run your containers on, or maybe serverless like Lambda, or various services like that where there's less operational overhead, and therefore your cost of ownership will come down. Similarly, you don't really want to be running your database on an EC2. So we sometimes see people running, say, typically SQL Server on EC2 because maybe the cost of running it on RDS is quite a bit more. You then look at options maybe like bring your own license or doing things like that. But the inherent problem of running something like even Oracle or SQL Server on EC2 is you will typically be running one server, or you need to run a little cluster, and therefore you kind of need to set up data replication yourself. You need to maintain it if there's ever a problem and your keys go out of sync. It's a lot of work for you to do yourself. So trying to leverage a lot of the cloud services, and particularly the AWS managed services, take a lot of the load off a developer. If you've got an infrastructure team and you've got a person that can look after it and they want to do it and they're happy to take it on versus their cost to company versus the cost of the AWS environment, then great. But from my side, and from our developers and stuff, generally these are things that create challenges at some point, and AWS or cloud normally has a term called undifferentiated heavy lifting. In other words, are you creating developer features for things with no real benefit to the client? In other words, can you rather be using services to try and mitigate yourself having to develop it? Then in terms of actually dealing with the client and stuff, and this is from my side over many years of dealing with clients from it and stuff and we often pick up clients that are dealing with another IT company, either for normal support or for software development or for AWS. And a lot of the time, the reason why people aren't happy is either they get a sense that the current provider isn't doing a good job, or that there's just been a certain disconnect between them and the client. And normally that comes about from being responsive. You want to be attentive. You want to show them that you understand it from the beginning. You want to kind of guide that conversation, show the client that you're the expert, or if not, say to the person that you'll get back to them, and then make sure that you've done your research and you've got a solution and you know how you want to go about it and what you position. You can back up with maybe the reference architectures or the case studies in terms of how you see it working, and therefore you are able to show that you understand what they're looking for and that you can deliver. The other thing that I see a lot of, particularly from developers, because most of us are all introverts, is you just want to be consistent and reliable. If you say to a client, hey, I'll be there at 10 o'clock, or I'll send you an email by the end of today or by the end of the week, do so. It's often those things that as human beings we sometimes put off, or other things come up, or we haven't yet gotten to a point where we feel it's ready to share. That's the other thing I often see a lot that developers fall into a bad habit of, is you kind of are waiting for perfection before you want to execute or share. And it sometimes can come from a sense of fear or a sense of ego, where you kind of, or sometimes you just kind of get so caught up in trying to do something that you're like, it's almost there, it'll be ready tomorrow. And meanwhile, you told the client 3 days ago you would send them something yesterday, and by the time you have got it, they already kind of lost that sense of trust in your ability to deliver. So, and this is across all industries. If you've got a broken tap in the kitchen, you phone a plumber and he says, I'll be there today, and he comes 4 days later, you're probably going to go with the other plumber who did come when he said he would. So it's really just about trying to be out there, be professional. And even if you haven't yet finished it, just give the client an update and say, hey, we're still working on it. We're busy with this. We've done that. And just give us another day or two or whatever. But, don't be scared to communicate with them, even if you haven't delivered on what you said. Because again, developers are often over optimistic in their timeframes. Again, that's something that I see a lot, where people will say, hey, it'll take 20 hours, and meanwhile it takes nowhere close to 20 hours. And then I think the other thing is also the easiest way, or the key thing is also, when you're doing a project with a client, be prepared to adapt during development. There's a reason why your traditional SDLC method of kind of more waterfall method isn't that used in a lot of companies and stuff. A lot of the companies have moved more into whatever terms you want to use, agile, scrum, sprints, those sort of things, where you're wanting to kind of be more of an iterative approach, where you'll say to the client, it'll take 2 months to develop, but maybe when you show the client where your progress is after 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and the client says, yeah, but flip, we really want this. Cool. Can that be done now? Is that something that's going to impress them? Is that a real shift from your side? Because a lot of the time, when you're building it, kind of how exactly you shuffle some of the features, and which, where you go, isn't the end of the world to a developer. Obviously, some things are dependent on others. But for the most part, if you can get the customer buy-in, if you can get that wow factor where you show them stuff and their jaw drops, or they kind of go like, wow, I didn't know that could do that, or heck, that is so much faster than I ever thought it would be. That's really solved my problem. That's when you know that you've won them over, and you've kind of got their trust, and then it becomes a much easier conversation working with them going forward and stuff. But you kind of really want to base it around what their expectation is as to how you need to emphasize certain things over other things to really kind of look for that. Then a couple of practical examples. So like if we focus specifically on, say, like the serverless side of things. So I just picked 2 examples because, again, without knowing where people might or might not be looking to develop, the question of how to impress a client for developing an application becomes very open in terms of what type of application and this and that and stuff. And I mean, a lot of that you can Google or figure out and stuff. So I wanted to bring a couple of practical examples from Silicon Overdrive side over the last year or two, where we've been working with clients on the serverless side and stuff. So we often create serverless websites. We do typically either some sort of JS library, either React or Angular or something like that. And then it normally calls, Lambdas or the code running on there and stuff. Sometimes there might be an API layer running on an EC2 or a Fargate or whatever. But for the most part, we normally lean towards a JS and a Lambda and a 3-tier application. There's normally a couple of ways of structuring it, as with all, good cloud things. There's multiple ways or multiple tools, and you need to kind of see what exactly is the use case, how will the data be flowing, where is the durations and the sticky points and stuff. But 2 of the more common things that we often get clients looking for is either using Amplify or running the website as a static S3 website that gets served out from CloudFront for the distribution. So there's benefits to Amplify. It does a lot of amazing things out the box. It's got pre-built templates. It's got a lot of the stuff. It sets up a lot of the things. So again, in a way, it's a bit like Beanstalk on EC2 for those that have maybe played with that. Really great, quick and simple, easy for POCs and stuff. But if you're building a production workload that you're planning to enhance and grow over time, you might find that it's got certain complexities that you might want a bit more control of in a more complex project that you're going to need to continue to enhance with. So our experience with Beanstalk is we'd rather run it on EC2. We'd rather spend a bit more time creating the infrastructure as code or the deployments, and therefore we'd rather be able to have a bit more control of the EC2 and the stuff rather than using Beanstalk. Similarly with Amplify, as I said, we have found that for one or two projects, it's worked perfectly. For one or two other projects, there's been issues where something you think would take an hour or two took a day or two because maybe some of the roles or the stuff that Amplify created behind the scenes or the way it integrated with Cognito ended up, being a bit more weird and wonderful than what you might initially think. And these sort of things can lead to certain complexities. So again, when you do your research, make sure that you're honest with yourself and your team as to where your strengths lie. Are you more on, this side of things, that side of things? What languages? Where are you good at? And that should naturally create a certain leaning towards certain tech stacks or ways of structuring it that makes sense. Obviously, you can pick up and learn in these things. But again, you really want to just try and lean into where your strengths are and where your team can do things. However, if there's good case for those products or the third parties being better, then it's obviously worth the time and effort to research. All developers love learning more things, but just factor that into your time frame so that you don't tell the client X and then can't deliver it by X because you've underestimated some of the little nuances or complexity there. The other thing that we see quite a lot of is, where do you run your compute? Do you run it on Lambda? Do you put it on EC2 or possibly even Fargate? And again, they all have advantages and stuff. Lambda is obviously serverless. You could find that if you've got a certain repeat task that will run frequently, or you've got a lot of users that fan out, you might find that Lambda has certain little quirks, like either cold starts or just simply the fact that at scale, Lambda will charge you roughly $1 per million calls. You might just simply find that at some point a little EC2 doing the background tasks might just be simpler than putting that on Lambda, particularly if there's long running stuff. You can use step functions, you can do certain stuff, but there's maybe certain things that maybe Lambda's not meant for in terms of long running ETLs or certain things like that. So you might find there's better, more efficient ways of doing it, particularly to handle interruptions, error handling, those sort of things. So you might find that running maybe Lambda for your event-based website is perfect, but maybe then on EC2 or Fargate, you might move your worker tier or your PDF generation and sending out of the emails or certain features like that. And you might find that that is a better use case to decouple it. How do you pass the information there? Do you maybe use a queuing mechanism? Do you look at something like Amazon SQS? Do you maybe look at a RabbitMQ? Maybe you want to stream it. Maybe there's a Kafka or certain other things. Or maybe do you just have your worker tier query the database and then read items from the table with a certain status? You might then find that if you've got a lot of transactions and you start building up a couple of cron jobs, you don't really want 5 cron jobs all reading the database every minute. You might find that that amount of load starts increasing your IO on the database, and increasing your database size simply for that is going to be expensive. So again, you might find that a queuing mechanism or an ability to kind of decouple your worker tiers becomes a lot more cost effective. So a lot of those considerations are there, and Fargate is a really great use case for removing the operating system from scope. You therefore don't need to patch it. It's great for container deployments and stuff. Whereas if you've got maybe more vanilla, I don't know, PHP or something running on EC2, you might find that EC2 is a simpler route than Fargate. So again, it depends a lot on the tech stack that you've chosen as to why you've chosen it. Is it for speed, reliability? What are you trying to achieve? If you're trying to create a Facebook or a banking app or something that switches payments, double-digit millisecond transactions or throughputs, it becomes critical. If you're creating something like an e-commerce site, People probably don't care about an extra 100 or 200 milliseconds, but then they need more reliability. They need more things. Maybe you need it more on the worker tier. So you'll find that not all workloads require the same amount of care on all components. And obviously, if you've got time, you can continue to refine it. But in essence, the nature is you want to be building something that's cloud native as much as possible, utilizing a lot of the native databases, possibly Aurora, RDS, DynamoDB. There's a lot of other databases that AWS have brought out, and Neptune. There are other ones like even Firebase and certain other things, or DocumentDB. A lot of clients also run MongoDB on Atlas. Or on DocumentDB as well. So again, you want to kind of see really and truly what you're trying to achieve and the tech stack you want. The other thing that we have seen that's also become a lot more common is a combination of SQL and NoSQL databases in the same solution. You might find that you use the NoSQL for your certain data loads or your structures, which is more, I wouldn't necessarily say unstructured data, but maybe it's a type of data that will change. So the client says, hey, we've got this type of file, we'll need to be bringing it in, but it's going to change when we board another client and they will have additional columns. And you're like, okay, great. Maybe then NoSQL makes more sense for that, but maybe the rest can be in your relational database where it's a bit more structured. Again, some people preferred SQL or SQL versus NoSQL. There's generally no right or wrong, but again, make those decisions with consideration based on cost and what is the client's pain point. Again, what are you trying to achieve? Speed, a cost-efficient solution that costs under $50, or something that runs really quick with a fast response that they can then take to market and scale from 50 to 50,000 users in a month or two from their marketing team, without them needing to replace components and all the rest of it. So it's really about trying to understand their journey and what they're trying to achieve that will allow you to make those informed decisions to really impress them.